When Adam and Eve were driven out of the Garden of Eden, they were as helpless as little children. They knew nothing of day or night, heat or cold. They could not kindle a fire to warm themselves, nor till the ground to grow food. They had as yet no clothes to wear, and no shelter against rain or sun. As long as they were in the garden, it was always light and warm, and their bodies were so fashioned that they had no need of food or sleep or of protection against the burning of the sun. But since they had eaten of the tree of knowledge, they had become like us. Moreover, all the beasts and birds were friendly with them, but now they knew that it was not so, and that they had no defense if any fierce animal chose to attack them. And more than all, they knew that they had a cruel enemy lying in wait for them outside the garden, even Satan, who had hated them from the first, and had brought about their fall by means of the serpent. And so it was that when they came out of the gate of the garden and saw the earth stretched out before them, covered with rocks and sand, and found themselves in a strange land where there was no one to guide them, they fell down on their faces and became as dead, because of the misery and sorrow which they felt. But God looked upon them and sent His word to raise them up and comfort them, and showed them a place not very far from the garden where there was a cave, and told them that they were to live there. Now this was the cave which was afterwards called the Cave of Treasures. When first they entered into the cave, they did nothing but weep and lament, not only because they had lost the garden, but also because for the first time the sky was hidden from them by the roof of the cave, for as yet they had never been in any place where they could not see it. But when the sun set and there was darkness outside the cave as well as inside, they were frightened beyond measure, for they said, "It is because of what we have done. The light is gone out of the heavens and will come back no more." Then the word of God spake to them and said, "Be comforted, it is only so for a few hours, and the light will return to you." And they remained praying and weeping in the cave until the darkness began to grow less. After that the sun rose, and Adam went to the mouth of the cave, and it shone full upon him, and he felt the burning heat of it on his body for the first time, and thought that it was God who had come to afflict and punish him, and he beat upon his breast and prayed for mercy. But God said, "This sun is not God. It is created to give light to the world, and every day it will rise in like manner and travel over the heavens and set, as you have seen it. I am God, who comforted you in the night." Then Adam and Eve took courage and came out of the cave, and thought they would go towards the garden. And when they came near to the gate by which they had been driven out of it, they met the serpent. Now before it tempted Eve and became accursed, the serpent had been the most beautiful of all the creatures. Its head was of all the colors of the most beautiful jewels. It had eyes like emeralds and a melodious voice. It had slender and graceful legs, and it fed on perfumed flowers and delicious fruits. Now it was loathsome to look upon. It wriggled on its belly in the dust, and all creatures spurned and hated it. And when it saw Eve, it was enraged to think of the curse that had come upon it through her, and it raised itself up and darted at her, and its eyes became blood red with anger. Then Adam, who had nothing in his hand wherewith to defend Eve, ran and caught it by the tail, but it turned upon him, and coiled about him and Eve with its body, and began to crush them. And it said, "It is because of you that I am compelled to trail in the dust and have lost my beauty." And they cried out for fear. But God sent an angel who caught hold of the serpent and loosed them, and smote the serpent with dumbness, so that thereafter it could only hiss. And a great wind came and took it up and cast it away upon the seashore of India. And when Adam and Eve had a little recovered themselves from their fear, they went on towards the garden, but at the gate of it there stood a great cherub holding a sword of fire. And when they were able to look upon his face, they saw that he was angry, and that he frowned upon them, and raised his sword as if he would smite them with it. But he said nothing. So they were in great fear, and turned from him, and went back in great sorrow of heart, wandering they knew not whither, until they found themselves standing on the top of a rock, and before their feet was a precipice. And Adam was so miserable that he desired to live no longer, and he cast himself down from the top of the rock, and lay on the ground below without moving. And Eve thought that he was dead, and said, I will not live after him. It is through my fault that all these evils have come upon him. And she also threw herself down from the top of the rock. But though both of them were torn and bruised, they were not wounded to death. And after a long time they came to themselves. Then they bethought them that they had done wrong in trying to put an end to their own lives before it pleased God to set them free from this world. Therefore Adam took stones and piled them up in the shape of an altar, and then they gathered leaves from the trees and wiped off the blood that had been spilled upon the face of the rock, and gathered up the dust that was mingled with their blood, and laid it upon the altar, and prayed to God to forgive their trespass. And this was the first offering that they made to God. And God looked upon them with pity and forgave them, and said, As you have shed your blood, so after 5,500 years have passed, will I take your flesh upon me, and shed my blood for you and for your children, and it shall have power to quench the flame of the sword which is in the hand of the angel, and you shall enter again into the garden, and dwell there until the time when I shall make a new heaven and a new earth. But when Satan saw that God had pity upon Adam and Eve, and accepted their humble offering, for he was all this time keeping watch to see what would become of them, he was filled with dismay and hate, and began to contrive means by which he might lead them astray and put an end to them. For he thought, If these creatures were destroyed, the earth would remain to me and to my hosts, and I should reign over it alone. He called therefore for some of his host, and made them appear like angels of light. And when they were all disguised in this fashion, they rose into the air and flew towards the cave, from which Adam and Eve were just coming out, meaning to go once again towards the garden. When they caught sight of these bright ones in the air, they stopped and raised their hands towards them, thinking that they were angels coming to them with a message. Satan called to Adam, Adam, we are angels come from God. He has sent us to bring you to the lake of pure water that is on the north side of Eden, that you may wash yourselves in it and be cleansed from your sin, and return once more to the garden. Come, therefore, and follow us. And they turned and began flying towards the north. But Adam and Eve were glad beyond measure, and followed the troop of angels as quickly as they could, till they came to the mountain on the north side of Eden, which overhung the lake. Then Satan lighted on the ground and guided them to the top of the mountain, which was very steep. And when they were at the summit, they stood for a while and looked down upon the waters of the lake. And while they were doing so, Satan vanished away silently, and all his host with him, so that when Adam and Eve looked round, they found themselves left alone and in great peril. And they saw that they had been brought into this danger by Satan, and that he had deceived them once again. And they cried aloud for help. Then God had pity on them, and commanded the angels Sariel and Salathiel to bear them in their arms and carry them back to their cave. And when they were come there, Adam prayed to God that if they might not be permitted to go into the garden any more, he would at least give them something for a remembrance of it to comfort them. So God commanded the Archangel Michael to go as far as the Sea of India, and fetch thence some gold, and dip it in the water that flows from under the tree of life, and give it to Adam. Likewise he commanded Gabriel to speak to the cherub that kept the gate of the garden, and go in and fetch some frankincense, and Raphael to bring myrrh also from the garden, and they did so. And Michael brought 70 rods of gold, and Gabriel 12 pounds weight of frankincense, and Raphael 3 pounds of myrrh, and these were all laid up in the cave where Adam and Eve lived. Wherefore it was called the Cave of Treasures. And when the appointed time was fulfilled, and the Word took upon him the flesh of the sons of Adam, 3 kings came from the east to do him honour, and offered to him that same gold and frankincense and myrrh, which had come down to them through many generations. After some days, Adam and Eve made a vow that they would go, one of them to the river Tigris and the other to the river Euphrates, and would wade into the water up to the neck and stand there for 40 whole days and nights, praying earnestly that they might be forgiven. For even yet they went on hoping that if they accomplished some great act of repentance, they might be permitted to return into Eden. They separated, therefore, and stood in the water of the river, fasting and praying. But Satan suspected that they had made such a vow, and it frightened him, for he did not feel sure that God would not change his purpose and forgive them. And he said to himself, "I will take care that they shall not keep their vow." Accordingly, on the 35th day, as Eve stood praying in the water, she heard a voice as of an angel, praising God, and she looked and saw one in bright raiment coming to her, and he called to her and said, "God has forgiven Adam, all is well. I have just now brought the good tidings to Adam, and he bade me come and tell you, and lest you should doubt of the truth, he said, 'Remind her of the sign which was given to us in the cave, how the angels brought the gold and laid it on the south side, and the incense on the east, and the myrrh on the west.'" Then Eve was sure that the messenger spoke true, and she rejoiced greatly, and came, as well as she could, out of the water, and followed him. But when they came in sight of the river Euphrates, she saw Adam still standing in the water praying, and she knew that she had been deceived. And at that moment Satan vanished away, and Eve fell upon the ground, for she was stiff with the cold, and weak with fasting. As for Adam, when he saw her, he cried out and smote upon his breast, and sank down into the water, and would have perished, but that God sent his angel and drew him out of the water. And he showed Adam that he could not by these means gain admittance to the garden before the time appointed was fulfilled. After these things, God showed Adam and Eve the things that were necessary for their life. For as yet they had eaten nothing since they came out of the garden, because the food which they had when they were there was heavenly food, and it sustained them through all these many days. Neither had they any clothes. Therefore God told them to go to the seashore, and there they should find the skins of some sheep whose flesh had been devoured by lions, and these skins they should take and make them into raiment. But Satan heard the words of God, and immediately went to the place where the skins were, with intent to throw them into the sea, or burn them with fire. Only just as he was about to seize them, God spake a word, and Satan was bound there immovable in his own hideous form. And when Adam and Eve came to the place, they saw him crouching beside the skins, and they were afraid at the horrible look of him. Then the word came to them, saying, "This is he who promised to make you as gods. What have you gained, think you, by hearkening to his words?" And Satan was cowed, and fled away in shame. Adam and Eve, therefore, took the sheepskins, and there came an angel who showed them how to sew them together with palm thorns and sinews, and they made them into raiment. Again, God showed them a land where corn was growing, and told them how they might use it for bread, for it was ripe, and they gathered the ears and made an offering of the first ears, and Satan came and burnt part of the corn, but the angels drove him away. Many other times also did Satan try to destroy Adam and Eve, coming to them disguised as an angel, and enticing them into the wilderness. And again, when they were sleeping on the side of a mountain outside their cave, he loosened a great rock above them that it might fall and crush them. But the angels of God caught it and fixed it like a roof over the heads of Adam and Eve, and when they awoke they were astonished. And once he fell upon Adam and smote him in the side with a sharp stone, so that he almost slew him. Nevertheless, in all these perils, Adam and Eve put their trust in God, and he protected them and healed them. And after a time Satan perceived that he would not be able to destroy them by injuring their bodies, and that they would not listen to him when he tempted them to disobey God. So Satan's war against Adam was defeated. This is the first part of the story of Adam, as it is told in an old book called The Conflict of Adam and Eve. It is only part of the story. I have left out a great deal. The second part of the story is taken from a Greek book called The Revelation of Moses and a Latin one called The Life of Adam and Eve. It tells how Adam died and was buried. Legend 2. The Death of Adam and Eve. Adam lived for 930 years, and there were born to him 30 sons and 30 daughters. And when he was 930 years old, he fell sick, and sent for all his children, and for their children also, saying, "Come and let me see you before I die." They all gathered together, therefore, at the door of his dwelling, saving Cain, who was a wanderer upon the face of the earth. But Seth was the oldest of those that came, and he was the most beloved son of Adam and Eve. And Seth said to his father, "Father, what is the matter with you?" And Adam answered, "Great pain and sickness is upon me." And his children said, "What mean you by pain and sickness?" For as yet no one had died upon the earth except Abel, whom Cain slew. Then said Seth, "Father, is it because you long after the garden and desire the fruit of it? If it be so, command me, and I will go to the gate and cast dust upon my head and weep and pray, and God will send his angel, and it may be he will suffer me to bring you some of the fruit of the garden, and you shall eat it and recover." Eve also wept and said, "My lord Adam, give me the half of your disease, and let me bear it for you, because it is through my fault that this evil has come upon you." Then said Adam, "I will tell you what you shall do, even you and my son Seth. You shall go to the garden and pray there as you have said, and ask the angel to give me some of the oil of mercy that flows from the tree of life, and bring it to me that I may anoint my body with it and be eased from my pain." So Eve and Seth departed and went towards the garden. And as they were going through the woods, a wild beast leaped out and attacked Seth. And Eve was terrified and cried out, "Alas, alas, what will become of me at the last day? Surely all that have done evil will curse me, saying, 'Woe unto Eve, because she kept not the commandment of God.'" And she cried out upon the wild beast, "How wast thou not afraid to fight against the image of God? How was thy mouth opened against him? Dost thou not remember that God put thee in subjection to us?" And the beast spake with a man's voice and said, "What have we to do with thy weeping and complaints? How was it that thy mouth was opened to eat of the fruit? Accuse me not, lest I begin to accuse thee." Then said Seth to the beast, "Shut thy mouth, be silent, dare not to touch the image of God." And the beast answered, "Thee will I obey, O Seth." And it fled and left him wounded, and went back to its den. So Eve and Seth went on to the garden and wept before the gate, beseeching God to send them the oil of mercy for Adam. And God sent Michael the archangel to them, who said, "Seth, thou man of God, weary not thyself with making supplication for the oil of mercy, for it cannot be given to thee now. But when the times are fulfilled, then shall come one who shall anoint thy father with that oil, and he shall rise up and return to the garden, he and all his seed. And the evil heart shall be taken from them, and a new heart shall be given them to understand that which is good, and God shall dwell in the midst of them, and they shall be his people. But now go back to thy father, for his end is near, even within 3 days, and tell him these words, and watch what shall come to pass when he is taken from thee." They returned therefore to Adam and told him, and he groaned and said, "Alas, O Eve, what is this that thou hast done to bring upon us the dominion of death? Now therefore call together our children and our children's children, and tell them concerning our sin from first to last." So when they were assembled, Eve spoke to them, and told them the whole story of how Satan came to the serpent and taunted it for paying homage to Adam and Eve, forasmuch as they were neither so beautiful nor so wise as itself. And he persuaded the serpent to let him speak through its mouth. And at the hour when the angels go up to the heavens to worship God, the serpent slipped over the wall and found Eve by the tree of knowledge, and of what happened after that, until the time when they were cast out of the garden. And when she ceased speaking, her children departed. Then she went in to Adam and said to him, "How can I live when you are dead? And how long will it be before I also die? Tell me." Adam answered, "Trouble not yourself, for you will not tarry long after me, and I believe that the same grave will hold both of us. But now, when I die, leave me alone, and let no one touch me until the will of God is made known concerning me. For I am sure that God will not forget me, but will visit the creature which his hands have made. Now therefore go and pray to him until I give up my spirit to him that gave it. For we know not how we shall meet him, whether he will yet be wroth with us, or whether he will turn and have mercy upon us." She went out therefore, and fell upon the ground, and prayed a long time. And at last the angel of mankind came to her and said, "Rise up, Eve, for Adam thy husband is departing out of this life, and is going to meet him that made him." Eve therefore arose and looked up into the sky, and she saw a chariot of light coming, drawn by 4 shining eagles, and angels on either side escorting the chariot. And when it came above the place where our father Adam lay, it stayed. And the angels came, bearing censers, and they stood about it, and lighted their censers, and the smoke of the incense rose up and hid the firmament. And the angels bowed and worshipped, saying, "Holy One, have mercy, for he is thine image and the work of thy hands." Also Eve beheld 2 great and fearful ones standing in the heavens, and she was afraid, and called upon Seth, saying, "Rise up, O Seth, and come to me, and behold that which no eye of man hath looked upon." So he came to her, and she said, "Seest thou the 7 heavens open, and thy father Adam lying upon his face, and the holy angels interceding for him?" She said moreover, "Who are the 2 dark ones that stand praying for thy father?" And Seth answered, "They are the sun and the moon, who are entreating the Most High for my father Adam." And Eve said, "Where then is their light, and why is their aspect black?" And he said, "They cannot shine in the presence of the light of all things, and therefore is their light departed from them." Now as Seth was speaking to his mother, behold, the angels blew with the trumpets and fell on their faces, and cried with a loud voice, "Blessed be the glory of the Lord over all his works, for he hath had compassion upon Adam, the work of his hands." Then came one of the seraphim, having 6 wings, and caught up the soul of Adam, and bare it to the lake of pure water, which is on the north side of Eden, and washed it before the face of God. And the Most High commanded him to deliver it unto Michael the Archangel, that he should bear it into paradise until the day of the visitation of all things. After that the holy Archangel entreated the Most High concerning the body of Adam, and God commanded all the angels to come before him, every one in his order. And they gathered themselves together, bearing censers and trumpets and vials full of odours. And the Lord of hosts went up, and the great winds before him, and the cherubim flying upon the winds, and the angels of heaven round about him. And they bore up the body of Adam, and carried it into the garden. And all the trees of the garden bowed and swayed, and gave forth their odours. And because of the greatness of that sight, and of the sweetness of the odours of paradise, all the sons of Adam, and all that were on the earth, were cast into a deep sleep, saving Seth only. Now as the body of Adam lay in paradise, God said, "O Adam, why didst thou trespass my commandment? For if thou hadst kept it, they that persecute thee would not have rejoiced against thee. Nevertheless I say unto thee, that hereafter I will turn their joy into sorrow, and thy sorrow into joy." Then the angels brought shrouds of silk and fine linen, and God commanded Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael, and they wrapped up the body of Adam therein, and anointed it with sweet odours. And the Lord said, "Bring hither also the body of Abel." For since the day when Cain slew him, the body of Abel had not been buried, because Cain often sought to hide it, but the earth would not receive it, until the dust that was first taken out of her and made into a body, that is, the body of Adam, should be restored to her. So the body of Abel was brought and wrapped in grave clothes like that of Adam, and they were both of them buried in the place from which God took the dust when he formed Adam in the first. And the angels dug the grave and covered it in. And when this was done, God called to the body, saying, "Adam, Adam." And the body answered, "Here I am, Lord." And the Lord said, "I said unto thee, Dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. Behold now, I promise thee that in the last days I will raise thee up again out of the dust, even thee and all thy seed with thee." And God sealed the tomb, that no man should touch it until 6 days were fulfilled, and the rib which was taken out of Adam should be given back to him. After these things Eve awoke out of her sleep, and was troubled, because she knew not what had become of the body of Adam. And she prayed, saying, "Lord, as thou didst make me out of the flesh of Adam, and as I was with him in the garden, and after we were cast out I was never parted from him, so now, I beseech thee, suffer me to be buried with him, and let no man part us asunder." And on the 7th day after the death of Adam, Eve was thus praying, and when she had ended her prayer, she looked up into heaven, and smote her breast, and said, "Lord God of all things, receive my spirit." And so she gave up her soul to God. And immediately the angels came and took her body, and buried it in the place where the bodies of Adam and Abel were laid.